Hey everyone, let's jump right in. Today we're taking a fascinating, highly structured journey into the literal heart of modern kitchen technology. We are demystifying induction cooker repair, both commercial and residential. Now, I know these appliances might just look like sleek, totally impenetrable slabs of black glass, but beneath that surface, it's a very logical, highly engineered system. In this explainer, we're going to take what we call an outside-in diagnostic approach. So we'll start with the frustratingly simple external fixes, then we'll safely cross the high-voltage barrier, and finally, we'll get into deep internal component testing right on the printed circuit board. Whether you're tasked with maintaining a busy restaurant kitchen or you just really want to understand the magic happening on your own countertop, you are absolutely going to walk away with a clear roadmap today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda. 1. Surface-level fixes. 2. Critical safety preparations, and please do not skip that part. 3. Diagnosing power failures. 4. Resolving heating issues. And 5. Our component testing guide.
Section 1. Surface-level fixes. Touch panel troubleshooting.
Look, before we even think about reaching for a screwdriver or a multimeter, we really have to rule out the absolute simplest explanations for an unresponsive stove. Honestly, you'd be amazed at how many service calls end up being resolved right here on the glass surface. If the entire touch panel is unresponsive, your very first step is the classic cold reboot. Sounds almost too simple, right? But it's highly effective. You want to switch off the power at the circuit breaker or just unplug it. But here is the trick. You literally have to wait. Give it at least 60 seconds, or ideally up to 5 minutes. These machines have internal capacitors that hold a massive charge. Giving it a few minutes allows those capacitors to fully discharge, which resets the main control board, completely clearing out any temporary software glitches or lingering overheating warnings. Once you turn the power back on, just test the panel.
Now, if a reboot doesn't do the trick, we need to check the interface itself. Induction stove touch panels use capacitive sensing, which basically means they're relying on the natural electrical conductivity of your bare, clean fingers. If there's water, grease, or even condensation on the glass, the sensors get totally confused. Just wipe it thoroughly with a dry microfiber cloth. Also, check the display for a padlock or a lock symbol. The child lock is a surprisingly common cause of utter panic. Just press and hold the lock button for 3 to 5 seconds. Finally, remove any nearby metal objects or small appliances. They can actually cause electromagnetic interference that completely paralyzes the touch sensors.
Section 2. Critical safety preparations. Crossing the high-voltage barrier.
We're shifting gears now. If the outside is fine, we have to go inside. I want to shift the tone here for a second to be pretty serious but empowering. We are about to open an appliance where potentially lethal voltages live, specifically inside that power supply section. Which brings us to a really vital question. Why is simply unplugging the induction cooker not enough to keep you safe? You've cut the power from the wall, so it should be totally dead, right? Well, wrong. The hidden danger inside these units lies in the large electrolytic filter capacitors. They can hold massive electrical charges long after the power cord is pulled.
And this brilliantly illustrates why patience is absolutely key here. There's this phenomenon called dielectric absorption. Even if you think a capacitor is totally discharged, its internal dielectric material can retain a sort of memory, causing a dangerous residual voltage to literally reappear at the terminals after a few minutes. These large capacitors are super sneaky, so treating them with respect is just non-negotiable.
So how do we actually handle them safely? You need to perform a controlled resistor discharge. First, double-check the device is completely unplugged. Then, take a discharge resistor. Typically, a 10 kilo ohm, 5-watt ceramic resistor is perfect for this. And very carefully touch its leads across the capacitor's terminals. You're going to wait for about 5 time constants, which in practical terms means holding it there for 10 to 30 seconds. I cannot stress this next part enough. Never, ever use a screwdriver to just short the terminals together. A direct short will create a massive arc flash. It could potentially weld your tool to the terminals, and it will instantly blow the copper traces right off the printed circuit board.
So the crucial takeaway here is, checking with the multimeter is your absolute final rite of passage before safely touching any internal circuitry. Set your digital multimeter to DC voltage. Place the probes right across the capacitor terminals. You are looking for a reading of less than 1 volt. Once you see that 0 point something, you are finally safe to begin your internal diagnostics.
Section 3. Diagnosing power failures, the heartbeat of the cooker.
All right, we are safely inside. Now let's troubleshoot the most catastrophic symptom. What happens when the unit has absolutely no power, no display, and the board is just totally dead? A really common scenario you'll face is this. Why does the main fuse keep blowing, or the circuit breaker trip immediately the exact moment you plug the unit in? If you replace the fuse and it instantly violently pops again, you have a dead short.
A highly useful trick here for technicians is using a series lamp test on your bench. If you plug the board into a series lamp and the bulb glows at maximum brightness, you've got a massive short circuit somewhere on that board.
And here are the heavy hitters that cause those short circuits. The number one culprit, without a doubt, is a shorted IGBT, something like the 15N120NDA. The IGBT is basically the massive switch handling all the high current. If it fails, it almost always fails closed, effectively turning the high voltage line into a dead piece of wire. The second culprit is a failed bridge rectifier, which converts your AC to DC. You should also look at the gate drive transistors, those little NPN and PNP transistors that tell the IGBT to turn on and off. And finally, check for a shorted resonant capacitor. Honestly, any of these will pop your main fuse instantly. Now, what's really interesting here is that to understand the board's internal heartbeat, you only need to check for two magic numbers, 5 volts and 18 volts. The main high voltage comes in, sure, but a smaller switch mode power supply, often using a Viper 12A chip and a 7805 regulator, steps that way down. The 18 volts is required to drive the cooling fan and power the IGBT gate drive circuit. That's the muscle. The 5 volts is required to wake up the microcontroller and power the front touch panel. That's the brain. If either of these voltages is missing, the brain of the cooker is essentially fast asleep.
And this brings us right to error codes. If you do have some power, but the machine won't start, you might see an E0 or E1 error code. This generally points right back to the exact power supply issues we just discussed. It usually means the input voltage is fluctuating way out of the acceptable 180 to 250 volt range, or a critical internal fuse on that low voltage line has blown.
Section 4. Resolving heating issues when the muscle fails.
Let's move on to a totally different scenario. The board powers on perfectly, the touch panel works, but when you put a pan on, the induction cooker completely fails to actually heat it. The brain is working fine, but the muscle isn't. Error codes act as a fantastic visual roadmap here. E2 or E3 usually means absolutely zero heating, pointing us directly back to the IGBT or that large resonant capacitor. E4 means unstable, intermittent heating. This is often caused by a drifting NDC temperature sensor or a physically deformed heating coil wire reel that just isn't making good magnetic contact with the pan. And E5 or E6, that's your over-temperature alarm. The machine is literally trying to save itself. Your immediate check there is a blocked air duct or a completely dead cooling fan underneath.
If you're digging deep into a no-heat issue, these are the exact specs you are looking for. The NTC thermistor should give you a resistance reading of right about 100 kiloohms at room temperature. The resonant capacitor, which is usually a big blocky component, should be between 0.27 and 0.33 microfarads. And pay close attention here, a capacitance drop of just 10% in that single component can completely kill the electromagnetic resonance required to heat the pan. Crazy, right? You'll also want to check the current transformer coil, which should read somewhere around 2.2 kiloohms.
Section 5, Component Testing Guide, Multimeter Masterclass.
Okay, let's see how this all builds together. We know what components fail, so let's pull out the multimeter and see exactly how to interrogate them at the component level to prove they're dead. Let's start with the heavy muscle, the IGBT, because it is by far the most frequent point of failure. When you remove it from the board and test it, a healthy IGBT will show infinite resistance between the center collector pin and the outer emitter pin. It's essentially an open switch. But a blown IGBT, your multimeter will let out a loud, continuous beep in continuity mode, showing a dead short circuit across the pins. If it beeps, it's definitively dead. No way around it, it has to be replaced.
Next is the bridge rectifier. Switch your multimeter over to diode mode. A healthy rectifier has an internal network of diodes, so if you probe the center AC input pins and the outer DC output pins, you should see a standard forward voltage drop of about 0.5 volts in one direction and total blocking, meaning an open circuit when you reverse the probes. A blown bridge rectifier will either beep at you with a dead short, or it will be completely open in both directions, which basically means the internal diodes have literally blown apart.
To wrap up the technical advice, especially for those of you running commercial kitchens, you really want to avoid these repairs entirely. Adopting a strict preventative maintenance schedule is key. Monthly, get in there and clean the heat sinks and air ducts to prevent those annoying E5 over temp errors. Quarterly, check the internal wiring just to ensure vibrations haven't loosened any high current contacts. Biannually, for those advanced commercial units, you can actually recalibrate the PID software parameters. And yearly, be proactive. Replace wearing parts like fuses and those hard-working electrolytic filter capacitors well before they bulge and fail on a busy Friday night.
Which leaves us with this final thought. When we look inside the black box of an induction cooker, we see an entire world of high voltages, resonant frequencies, and delicate microchips all working perfectly in unison. As these everyday appliances become increasingly complex, are we simply repairing the machines? Or are the machines actually teaching us the vital foundational skills of patience, rigorous safety, and true diagnostic precision? It is definitely something to think about the next time you turn on your stove just to boil some water. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay safe out there and keep learning.